over these many years of telling stories, it has been said that the stories are like links in a never-ending chain. But perhaps you'll have recognized by now that what it is that joins one link to the other in this chain with no beginning and no end, that there is something unchanging, that which links, joins each segment of stories to the other. And it's summed up in that anecdote about the Zen Patriarch. The sixth Zen Patriarch had to be chosen, and so the head monk of the monastery was asked to write on the wall his understanding. And so he wrote, "Our body is the Bodhi tree, our mind a mirror bright. We carefully clean it hour by hour to let no dust alight." But then the monk who served in the kitchen came by, and after reading this, he took the piece of chalk and drew a line through what had been written and wrote, "There is no Bodhi tree, nor stand of mirror bright, when everything is emptiness. Where can the dust alight?" And then there is that monk in the monastery who was known to be the most radiant of beings. He emanated joy and peacefulness. He seemed always to be in the right place at the right time when someone needed help or advice. The meditation hall and the cloisters always shone with his care. And one day he was asked, "Is it hard being in the monastery?" And he told his story. He said, "Before I came into the monastery, my life was hard. I was driven by desires for success, money, an insatiable urge for womanizing, the sense of responsibilities that weighed so heavily on me, and I became desperate, desolate. It chased me to the monastery gate. When I was before the abbess, she asked me many questions, and I found myself telling her things that I'd never told anyone before. And then she welcomed me in, and saying, "You are welcome here." And before leaving her presence, I asked her, "What advice do you give me that I should follow?" And looking at me with great compassion and seriousness, she said, "Ensure that you pass through every door completely." When I left, I spent the afternoon wondering what it was that she meant. But I couldn't understand, and I thought to myself perhaps she had grown old and was beginning to be senile. But the very next day, when I passed through a door, the door spoke to me. At first I thought it was just my imagination. But then each door I passed through said the same thing, so I listened. And it said, "It is all empty." Every day, every door through which I passed said the same thing. It is all empty. So I asked the monks and nuns, did they hear the voice? And they said no. I asked them, did they understand what the words meant? It is all empty. And they scratched their heads and shook their heads and said no. But then I thought about these words, it is all empty. And I came to the understanding that what it meant was about my past life outside the monastery. Yes, when I looked at it now, all of those desires were empty. So I consoled myself that this is what the words meant. It is all empty. My previous life of seeking, striving, insatiably desiring was indeed empty. And I began to think how good it was in the monastery. I felt safe. The desires had abated. It was peaceful. But even though I had this understanding, the doors kept speaking to me. It is all empty. It is all empty. So I thought, what is it meaning? Could it be that life in the monastery was not what it seemed to be? What was this feeling of safeness, an absence of pressures and desires? And that's when the door's voice got louder. Each door saying the same. It is all empty. So I thought I must try harder to understand what spirituality is. Why am I here? So I decided to meditate more. I went to the meditation hall and spent many hours in meditation. And I had moments of satori, moments of bliss. And I looked around at the other monks and nuns and I thought, oh, I've made it. I have this satori. But the voices got louder. It is all empty. And suddenly I realized that it was pride to feel better than these monks and nuns, was an ego of spirituality, a garment. But the voices got louder. It is all empty. I could not bear it. It became so painful. I tried to stay in my room. I climbed out of windows so I wouldn't have to pass through the doors and hear that voice. It is all empty. And then I could not stand it any longer. I burst out of my room, dashed through the doors. But then I came to the monastery gate. All the doors had said, It is all empty. I couldn't bear to hear that one more time. I decided to go to a cliff and jump off if this was all it is, life, suffering. But there was the monastery door. I could not pass through it and hear that voice one more time. It is all empty. And then I realized all was my mind. And my mind was gone. Since then, there have been no more voices. Never again have I heard the words, all is emptiness. And yet, emptiness is all that is real. What does it mean in this story when it is said, always pass through a door completely, and it is all empty? Where do they meet? Not just in this story, but in us. What does it mean? Always pass through a door completely, and it is all empty. What have we discovered in finding ourselves here, always present, alert, attentive, but life coming in with its experiences? What does it mean? Always pass through a door completely, and it is all empty.